So will Trump's controversial comments about abortion and nuclear weapons affect his front-runner status? I want to bring in CNN political commentator Errol Louis, who joins us live from New York. Great to have you with us. Now, Wisconsin votes tomorrow. Trump is behind there in the polls. Will the gaffes over the past week hurt him at the ballot?
Well, not necessarily tomorrow, Linda, but there's a broader question out there, which is whether or not he can get enough delegates to become the nominee. If you don't have 1,237 delegates, you cannot become the Republican nominee. And what Trump is trying desperately to do is get to the convention with those required delegates already in hand. That's why he's upset about Kasich. That's why he's trying so hard not to get blown out tomorrow by Ted Cruz. Donald Trump sort of not ahead in the polls in Wisconsin. And so these gaffes don't help him at all because he's got a number of different states he's got to go through. And then looking ahead, I think that's where it really starts to do damage. The loose talk about nuclear weapons, the talk about abortion and so forth, it really turns off independent voters. And any Republican really needs those independent voters in order to win in November.
And Errol, as we just heard in that piece, Trump is calling for Kasich to drop out. Is Kasich taking Cruz votes or Trump votes? Who is he hurting most by staying in the race?
It's interesting because he does take away from both. And now both candidates, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, have both called on Kasich to drop out. But the reality is the person who has the most to lose is Donald Trump for the reason I just cited. Any delegate that doesn't go to Donald Trump is a problem for him. And Ted Cruz is the immediate threat. But John Kasich can drain some away as well. And then there are even candidates that have already dropped out, candidates like Marco Rubio, who specifically sent a note to the Republican Party leadership asking to retain his 157 delegates. They're playing a game, the anti-Trump forces, and that includes Kasich and Cruz, they're playing a game of keep away. They're trying to just keep him from getting to the required number of delegates. And frankly, if Ted Cruz does well in Wisconsin tomorrow, it becomes very hard to see how Trump will get the required number of delegates before the convention. At that point, you have to go to the convention. You have to start doing some horse trading, some bargaining, some negotiating. It's going to be a real free-for-all if it comes to that.
So if Trump does lose Wisconsin tomorrow, how much closer does that bring the Republican Party to a contested convention?
Well, you know, contested is a word I haven't been using, Linda, honestly, because this is why they have conventions, you know? I mean, they have a convention to see, to sort of look at the situation, see who's got the required number of delegates, and this is far from the first time that this has happened. I mean, in 1976, the sitting president of the United States, Gerald Ford, went into the Republican convention, and he didn't have enough delegates to be declared the nominee of the party. So they had to have a vote. Ronald Reagan at the time was really trying to challenge him for leadership of the party and of the nomination. So these things do happen. It can go late into the night. There'll be the famous smoke-filled rooms, although I guess these days there won't be much smoke, maybe vape-filled rooms. And they'll try and figure out which candidate is the consensus of the party as a whole. And Donald Trump, let's keep in mind, he's doing better than the other candidates, and he always has back in the days when there were 17 people running for the Republican nomination. But he has never had a majority in any poll of Republican voters who supported him. It's his job to build that majority, and that's what this process and the convention really represents.
So, Errol, we know that Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan insists that he won't run as a last-minute presidential candidate. So if none of the candidates get enough votes before the convention, is there anyone else behind the scenes within the Republican establishment being considered as a possible contender?
Well, not to get too deep into the weeds, but the general answer, Linda, is that on the first day or the opening days of the convention, there'll be a meeting of the Rules Committee, and they will make decisions about who can or cannot be considered. And there's a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety around that. It's not as if there's some set of people waiting in the wings, although I'm sure both Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, or anybody else would love to be considered. But the rules have to be established. And 4 years ago, for example, the Rules Committee said that nobody can become the nominee unless they've won at least 8 states. That's a somewhat random kind of a number. If that were applied this time, it would exclude Kasich. One of the first things that will happen will be a rules fight over who can or cannot be considered. And if they get together, the Rules Committee, and they throw the nomination open, meaning that anybody could be eligible to be selected, then you've got a real free-for-all, and almost anything could happen at that point.
So the rules can be broken. Errol Louis, great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Well, the Democrats are neck and neck in Wisconsin, but both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are focusing on a looming battle in New York. Ahead of that state's primary in 2 weeks, the candidates expect to hold another debate, but they can't seem to agree on a date or a network. Last week, Clinton's campaign said she would not debate Sanders if he does not improve his tone. The two have traded attacks in recent days over environmental issues and campaign finances.